Welcome to the Worship Keys YouTube channel. My name is Carson Bruce. So glad you're here. We talk all things music theory, gear, industry, and ministry for your worship keys playing. If this episode is beneficial for you or you have any questions as you continue to watch, feel free to comment below, and I'd love to hear any feedback that you have along the way. So let's get into today's episode. Today, I'm with Dwan Hill.
What's up, everybody?
Guys, this is going to be an incredible episode, especially if you're wanting to learn some Hammond B3 organ stuff.
Yeah.
But welcome to the pod, man.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Really glad
for
to be here.
taking the time.
I love talking about the organ. This is great.
You're incredible at it, man.
Oh, thank
incredible.
You, man. Thank you.
Dwan, well, for one thing, I love your song, Mansion.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've been singing it all morning before recording. You're a songwriter, producer, arranger. You're a worship leader at Crosspoint here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is awesome. Yeah. You're what is it? 3-time Grammy Award winning.
Yes, sir.
3 times Dove Award winning.
Yes, sir.
And 2 times Stellar Award winning.
Wow,
songwriter
man!
And producer.
You went through the bio and everything. Didn't
I have to do the research here.
you probably know better than I do, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Worked with many amazing artists throughout your career so far. But of course, you are your own artist too. But we'll link your music here in the description of YouTube and podcast. People can follow you on Instagram as well. Today's episode's all about how to really blend organ into this modern worship style that we have, like CCM, of course. Yeah. Crosspoint is like a blend of CCM and gospel, and you've done a great job incorporating some of that on stage the past few years, right?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Bringing in the organ.
Yeah.
We love Crosspoint here. We've had Ryan Pruitt. We've had Seth Penn on the podcast.
Hey,
and,
those guys are great.
Man, they're awesome.
Shout out to Seth and Ryan and Crosspoint. Love y'all. But I think more people are excited to hear and learn about all the things that gospel music is, and you can't have gospel music without the organ. I mean, it is the flagship instrument of gospel music. So thank you for giving time to it and helping people learn how to play, because I think it's needed and going to keep growing. Absolutely.
Before we jump into things, tell us about the choir room.
Yeah.
I was talking to a buddy back, I'm originally from Alabama, and I was like telling him, his name's Nate, I was like, man, I'm having the privilege of meeting Dwan Hill, and he's with the choir room. He's like, oh my goodness, I love the choir room. I love the choir room. He's a big vocalist and loves choirs. And
tell him to come sing with us, man. Tell him
absolutely. Hey, take the 3-hour trip up, Nate.
Yeah,
come on
Nate,
and sing.
I'm looking at you, Nate. Get here. Get here.
But tell us about the choir room.
I grew up listening and being in gospel choir most of my childhood. And as I got older and got to Nashville, like I mentioned, there's a lot of genres here that are amazing, but I kind of lost the opportunity for me and my family to sing and play gospel music. And so over the years, I just kept having these conversations with friends, and it kind of culminated with a few of our friends here in town that we were like, let's just do it. Let's just see if we can put people in a room without a stage or performance or even rehearsing for something. Let's just sing all the songs we love to sing and see what happens. So long story short, we put an Instagram post up. 100 people showed up the first night, which is wild, over at Belmont University. Shout out to Belmont.
You have 2 degrees from Belmont, right? Music education and composition.
Yeah.
Shout out to Belmont.
Yeah, man. They have been so supportive and formative for my musical career. And so they opened one of their studios for us to come hang out. So I called some musician friends. Our team showed up. We sang gospel music, and we thought that was going to be it. That was like a one-time thing, got out of our system. But the demand was so high for us to come back that we planned another one a couple months later that was 150 people. A year later, it was 700 people in one room.
Wow.
And at this point, I think we have about an email list of 5,000 people. Stay tuned. By the time this is aired, there'll be some really big news about some other cities. That's all I'll say for now. But the demand has grown outside of Nashville. We're going to go to some other cities and have the choir room. And people love gospel music, man. They love to sing. Yes. We do it in a round. So there's anybody from the amateur who thinks they're tone deaf to the professional who's an artist. We have everyone come, and we just sing gospel music and honestly have an old school church service. Our tagline is everyone has a voice, and not just a musical voice, but everyone has value and is made in the image of God. And the way that we display that together through unity, one of the best ways to do that is singing together. And so it's more than just gospel music. It's a call to love and unity. And I think that's what the genius of God's idea of choir is, that you can get to love and unity a lot faster when you're singing Amazing Grace.
Absolutely.
You know.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we're going to just let you take it away.
Gospel music and organ is the foundation of pretty much everything that I do musically. I grew up playing in a Pentecostal Kojic church. My grandfather on one side was a Pentecostal pastor, and my grandfather on the other side of my family was a Baptist pastor. I always joke, I don't know how I made it out of that out of that combination, but it turned into a really great foundation for how I approach music. Kind of in my high school years, we moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and this guy named Derek Jackson was the minister of music at this church, Faith Temple, and he's just the best. If you don't know who Derek Jackson is, you need to know him immediately. He still lives there, still plays at his dad's church at Faith Temple. But I would sit beside him on the organ every Sunday and watch everything that he did and run home after church and try to copy it for a week and come back the next Sunday and try to copy it. And he would show me and teach me and say, hey, these are the drawbar settings. This is the kind of way you follow a preacher or a soloist. Every time I play, I think about him. I owe him so much honor and respect. So thank you, Derek, if you ever see this. And then when I graduated from high school, I moved to Nashville to go to Belmont University. And that was kind of the first time. I mean, I took piano lessons, classical lessons as a kid for piano, but Belmont was the first time that I started to consider playing for a career, playing music for a career, and adjusting the foundation of my musical background to session and studio and tour work. And what was really interesting was I started hanging out with a lot of my friends who also played, who kind of came up only on the classical side, but didn't have kind of the ear gospel training that I had. And so we kind of were swapping skills where they would show me, you know, kind of how to record, how to read music, how to interpret kind of specific genres, where I was teaching them how to feel music and how to be more expressive and how to be more free in how to play. And so all of that kind of combines to what I do now, which is somewhere in between producing music, records and albums. I serve at a church, Crosspoint, where I'm the worship pastor. So we do a lot of CCM worship music, but I'm bringing some gospel and soulful influences to that. Basically, I feel like a lot of times I'm the bridge between these genres, and I love gospel music and the heritage and the foundation that it's given me, but I also love all these other things that I kind of combine as well. What's interesting about the organ is that although, first of all, it's a miracle that this combination of organ and Leslie exists. That was not a planned combination. The fact that those two inventions combined to make the sound of the Hammond organ, which you couldn't have that sound without one or the other, has changed music. It's in every genre. It's the sound of the organ just cannot be replaced. And what's so fantastic about the organ sound is that it is moldable to different things. You know, you can have a very kind of pad drone sound in 1 second, and literally the next second can be a bombastic, bright pipe organ sound, and the next second is this gospel vibrato Leslie sound. And so it's a very versatile instrument, much like a digital keyboard would be, where you can pull up different sounds. The challenge, and I would say even the blessing of the organ, is the presets. I don't know any gospel organist that uses the presets on this side of the organ. Most organists are octopus. And their arms are constantly moving. The Leslie is constantly coming on and off. The drawbars are constantly moving because the sound of the organ is a organic, vibrant sound. And so a lot of the work that I do in modern music is a verse, for example, will have one tone and a chorus will have another. You know, a verse will have no vibrato and a chorus will have vibrato. You can brighten up tones incrementally. So you can start with something like, you know, very pad based. And then as you go, I mean, that's crazy that you can do that with an instrument and get that bright that quickly. What makes the organ useful for modern music is how moldable the organ can be and how much character you can get out of it depending on the context that you have. And, you know, in church, the organ is dynamic. Not so much in modern music. Most of the time when I'm called for a session, they don't want bombastic. They want some type of supplement to the music and the singer that's going on. Most people just like the warm tone of it in the background, even if you can't distinguish what the part is, you just like hearing. And then every now and then, almost without fail, people ask me for like an improv track, which basically means I'll play the track as if I'm kind of in the background padding, and then for one take, I'll just kind of go for it and play licks. I'll stick out in spots, musically, of course, but inevitably they'll pick one or two of those licks to tell people there is an organ on this track. And I think people like to hear that chirp every now and then. I do a lot of organ work for CCM music, kind of pop leaning, and then also for worship, church leaning. And inevitably, you know, first of all, most of those songs are not in sharp and flat keys. They're usually in D, C, E, G for guitar players. Let's say, for instance, I'm in C. And let's say the chord progression is like a C major, 2, 3, and a 4, 2, 3, and a 1, 2, 3, and a 4. It's almost like every song I do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I usually kind of slide into it. It's a little thing I kind of picked up on tour. People on tour love flourishes. It's like the more you can show them that you're actually playing, the more excited they are. So instead of just going, honestly, a couple things. If you don't grow up playing gospel music, you'll probably play it like this. But as you put that flat, the E flat, right before the E, it makes it a little soulful. And then coming down on the D. The thing about keyboard players, including piano players, we can't bend notes. So where a guitar player or a trumpet player can kind of get, you can't get that. So what I do is kind of make it sticky. I'll put the E flat and the E together. You kind of hear I'm playing both, and kind of it's the only way we kind of bend without a bending wheel. And then same thing going down. So it turns into. And then the flourish up to it is. So it turns what could be a really boring line into like, oh, that sticks out. So. It's like the most classic rock and roll gospel lick into a chorus or verse. So it doesn't maybe sound complicated, but once you get all the pieces in there, you realize how much you're blending together to make kind of an organ thing. Honestly, I wish there was more Hammond organ in worship music in churches. So let's just kind of make sure I split the two circumstances. So CCM worship, again, a lot of it is just, let's do what a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. So basic chords. There's not much you can do there because there's a lot of guitar, probably drums and tones going on. The singers are doing their thing. And so there's not a lot you can do. But what you try to do, again, if you're on a chorus, the way you use your kind of vibrato switch can help give life to it. I just turned it on. Turn it off. Turn it back on. So even though I'm not changing the tone, you get movement in the tone because the Leslie is moving wind back there on the Leslie. And then let's say we get to the bridge. You have no rival, brighter. You have no equal. Now and forever. You see, I kind of went up to that chord. That's kind of the first, like, oh, there's an organ here. And it's the same chord I would have played. It's an A minor chord, A, C, E. But again, the flourish up to that octave jump makes your ear go, oh, that's special, even though it's really not that special. Death could not hold. What I'm doing there is I'm playing a B flat major chord, but again, because I don't have a bend note, I'm putting that A on the bottom of the B flat and making it. It makes it sound like I'm going quarter, 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 even though I'm holding down the chord and just accenting the A. Again, it just adds energy that I may not be able to. I'm not a guitar player, so I can't strum and stroke. Those are kind of like my cheat codes to get energy without changing the chord. For gospel music, it's a whole different thing. Gospel music starts on 10 most of the time. And so you can't really grow as much, but the flourishing and the call and response between the singers is where you kind of get your thing. Let's see. I don't know. It's probably not the right key for the song, but your name is above all name. That song is kind of like right in the middle of gospel and CCM, but you got chorus like, you would never play that in CCM music, but that 7-3-6 is the way that you get from 1 to 6, which is a common chord progression in CCM music. But gospel music puts a 7-3-6 in the middle of that chord progression, so you get like, oh man, we're going somewhere. Your name is above all names. Going out. Here comes another one, 5 minor 1. So gospel music has these chords that do what CCM music does in tone, gospel music does in chord progressions. And in the middle of that, you're doing all the things. Same thing. That's the same quarter note kind of push. And octave up. And then all those licks in between. It's just gospel music, man. It's more because it needs to be. It's evoking an emotion and an expression. So I got to tour with an artist named Johnny Lang, and he's an incredible singer, blues, guitar, and a lot of gospel influences. We actually took a black B3 on the road with us. Praise God, I didn't have to set it up, but they would set it up every night for me. And we'd be in like a house of blues or these small venues, and sometimes bigger venues, but honestly, people were really close to you. They could see what you were playing. And playing live has a freedom and a flexibility that you may not have in the studio, because you're trying to engage an audience and keep them excited about the music. And so you probably do more live than you would in the studio. The studio is different because you're trying to set up a part that will last, dare I say, eternity. You know, you're recording something for the version of the song that you want people to learn and chart and play. So I try to be more cognizant of, is this what I want to always be the part of this song? Whereas live is, you take that part that someone else is recording and you embellish and improv and make it exciting for the live audience. Which is, again, one of the differences between, you know, studio playing and even church. Because in church, even, you try, if you were to take the exact arrangement from the record, even for a worship song, it may be hard to communicate. So I would say the studio, think template and what you want to always be heard and played, and then live, think, man, what is my personality? What is my input? What is my interpretation of that song? My best advice for you worship leader friends who want to incorporate organ into your church is to buy an organ. but most of you can't do that, and I understand that because of limited budget, and even maybe space on stage. So I think your next steps, your next options would be, first of all, listen to music with organ on it. Because if you try to create something that you haven't heard or have an ear for, it's going to be hard to incorporate that. And I'm sure we can give you some suggestions on that. I think the next thing would be there's a lot of really great emulations out there. Um, and here's the thing. When you hear an organ in the track, it's really hard to distinguish whether it's real or not. So don't carry the pressure of if it's not real, it's not usable. Um, by the time it hits the front of house engineer or hits a track, you probably can't tell if you know what you're doing and how to do that. Once you do a solo organ, that's all you hear, then it gets really difficult to fake. So let's just talk about some ways to play in a track or live that feels real. The brighter an organ gets on a plug-in or on an emulation, the harder it is for it to sound real. So don't feel like you got to go on your plugins because it's probably not going to be great. If you just stick with kind of that tone, which is like medium, it's not dark like this, but it's not all the way out. You know, it's kind of like that with the Leslie switch. Most organs will sound good like that because you're not asking the plugin to do all the organic mechanics of this instrument. You're asking for pretty much the basic thing. I would also ride your pedal, your volume pedal. One of the specific ways that an organ sounds real is that an organ player's foot is always on the pedal. It's always doing this. My foot's doing this, kind of on tempo. So if you have a volume pedal with you, I would add that to whatever plugin or Nord or Viscount. Viscount, for example, is building these kind of digital organs that sound really great. Keep your foot on the pedal, and then keep your other hands, again, it's an octopus. It's like foot on the pedal, hands on the keyboard, drawbars, and then keep your other hand on some type of Leslie switch. Because, again, those are the things that trick your ear into thinking that it's actually a real organ. The Leslie's coming on and off. The volume's coming up and down. As you play sections of the song, instead of keeping it on this setting the whole time, turn the volume up, Leslie, drawbar. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, that instrument has life on it. And I think that'll help. Like I said, Nord is great. A trick that I've done, if you can't get a whole organ, sometimes you can run a plug-in or the Nord or the Viscount through a real Leslie, which is less expensive. And actually the motion of the rotors on the Leslie, how it moves that air on a plug-in will work wonders. You'll be surprised how real it sounds because that's honestly a lot of the work is the Leslie. Turn the gain up on the Leslie, add a little dirt on it, make it spin. They'll never know. I've been the worship pastor at Crosspoint for almost 3 years, and for the first 2 years, I just played piano and led, like most of the guys on our team. And then someone actually came to me, I think because they saw some of the things I was doing outside the church, and I'm like, would you ever want to buy the organ for the church? And I said, why would you even ask me that question? Of course. And thankfully, they had the budget to do it, and so I play it kind of once a month at the church. You know, I get to pick a lot of the songs, so as I'm picking songs, I'm thinking, man, it'd be great to sing this song, like What a Beautiful Name, but with organ and acoustic guitar, just to get the tone in the room. And inevitably, every Sunday, someone will come up to me and say, oh, that organ, it reminds me of my childhood, or oh, that organ, it just makes me feel different about worshiping. And I think that's why it's special. It's nostalgic in the sense that it takes people back to a place that they remember. But honestly, for people who grew up in gospel church, black gospel church specifically, I think it feels safe and like they're at home. Like they can actually engage with the song differently than they could if it was just acoustic guitar. So I'm thankful that Crosspoint invested in that. And we use it about once a month to just take the worship to a different spot.
That's awesome, man. Can you give your best advice to someone wanting to learn the organ where they've never actually like have experience with it? They don't even know how to turn it on.
Yes.
To warm it up.
Yes.
What's your best advice for just starting that journey?
Yes. Yeah. For those of you who are just wanting to get started on the organ, and it can feel overwhelming to have black, white, brown switches and buttons that don't exist on other instruments, just take your time. You don't have to rush into it. I think the first thing is to not get overwhelmed And the easiest thing to remember, I'm sure they'll go over this in maybe an episode that's specific about drawbars, but almost everything is repeated. So this keyboard is the exact same as this keyboard. These drawbars do the exact same thing. They're just 4 sets of them. This Leslie switch only does one thing, you know? So I know it looks like it's a lot, but honestly, it's less information than your digital keyboard. You probably would get more lost on the keyboard with all the sounds than you would with this if you just thought about it like, I actually don't have that many resources, which is why this instrument is so beautiful and creative, is you have less to work with, but more to give. For example, you know, sounds the exact same thing. What I just did was I pushed this B flat on the setting, and I'm on the B natural of the top setting, upper drawbar, but the same settings for the drawbars. I just want to show you that that's the exact same sound, even though it looks like really confusing, you know, from the first time. So don't get overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time. Just keep one drawbar setting down. Play with this sound. Play all the songs you know. And then just pull something else out. Now, I will say, what I get the most questions about is how do you play with your feet? Like these drawbars. In fact, it's actually kind of a running joke because I'll go into a session or a live scenario and there'll be a full Hammond there with Leslie, all the stuff, but no pedals. And I'll say, hey, that's like showing up with a keyboard with no sustain pedal. It's like, for me, the pedals are fundamental and necessary. But a lot of people didn't grow up playing pedals with the organ, so I understand that. Again, the pedals are the exact same thing as the keyboard. And they are the same notes, same tonalities, just you play them with your feet. It's almost like that game in Target or whatever that you dance on a keyboard and make sounds. So don't feel like you have to learn how to play. I'll just take it one at a time. Let's say we're in C major. You know a C major chord. Just put your foot on the lowest C of the pedals. And this drawbar setting here is all you need. Pull that guy all the way out, and all of a sudden you have a bass player on your foot. Then say you want to go to a 4 chord, you just take your foot and go to that F. Back to 1. Now, over years of time, you'll get used to where your foot lands. Like, I'm not looking at my feet right now, and I could probably tell you what note I'm playing because I've been doing it for so long. And advanced, you'll get to the point where you can do kind of heel toe. Now, that's from years of figuring that out. But you don't have to go there. You just start with... I remember Derek Jackson in Memphis, he would be playing and have his foot like all the way up on. Be playing with like both feet, which is wild. So, but again, it's another tone that you can get on the organ. Not required. I would start with what you can do, which is you understand probably music theory with 1s and 4s and chords and all that. So start basic. And what the pedals do, they just give you a low end that works. Now, another cheat code is you can actually access some of that same tone. See how similar that is? I'm playing the lowest C on the top keyboard. So let's say you're not quite ready to do your feet yet. You can get a similar thing by pulling out the first 4 drawbars and playing. So that's a way to get practice in and the sound out without getting all your feet crunched up at the beginning. Man, I love the way that Leslie sounds. One of the most helpful things that I learned from Derek in Memphis was how to play organ compared to how to play piano. It's a very simple concept that you may not notice when you watch people play, but the organists that I like to hear the most are the ones that have these sticky fingers. What an official term. I need to find a better term for it. But basically, how long can you keep your hands on the keyboard without lifting them up? Because the organ doesn't need a sustain pedal. What you do with your fingers is your sustain pedal comparative to piano. So for example, on piano, if I were to do this and had the sustain pedal down, it would sound like this, right? On organ, I don't have that. All I have is a volume pedal. But what I can do to emulate a consistent and continuous sound is to keep my fingers on the keyboard and make it more sustained, so like this. And let's say I want to do an inversion of that chord. Instead of playing the inversion like this, which is what I'll do on piano with sustain pedal, I would just keep my hands down and transition. You see how I'm putting my fingers on the notes to kind of trade them with my other fingers. Now, that might seem maybe unhelpful or unuseful right now, but what it allows you to do is keep a continual kind of melody and chord going. See how it feels like I have extended every note. The next step of this is kind of these crunchy chords, and this is more of a stylistic thing. You wouldn't do this maybe in CCM or maybe a specific context, but I like kind of these, what would seem like a wrong note feels kind of just crunchy. It allows you to kind of evoke this kind of reverent thing, and the tension and release is what is a secret to music, by the way. The more you can build tension and release it as you play or sing is how music is expressive. So that's what I'm doing. I'm creating tension with the release. It's just like you tell people a story with the chords you're playing. I think the last thing I'll say is, see how it feels like I have extended every note. The next step of this is kind of these crunchy chords, and this is more of a stylistic thing. You wouldn't do this maybe in CCM or maybe a specific context, but I like kind of these, what would seem like a wrong note feels kind of just crunchy. it allows you to kind of evoke this kind of reverent thing. And the tension and release is what is a secret to music, by the way. The more you can build tension and release it as you play or sing is how music is expressive. So that's what I'm doing. I'm creating tension with the... release. It's just like you tell people a story with the chords you're playing. I think the last thing I'll say is this is a setting that I use for solo organ. If you ever have to play Amazing Grace, for example, by yourself with no singer, you can set up your drawbars and organ to have up here. So it's a bright, kind of punchy sound with this mellow on the bottom. So you almost have soloist, backing band, and bass player. It's a beautiful about the organ is you can have all three. You keep that setting there, it's like a full band. It's just like, man, you get to the mountaintop with just a few moves. And so I just wanted to point that out. There's a way to solo, accompany, and bass and move into a full thing pretty quickly.
All right, y'all. Dwan Hill, ladies and gentlemen. You
What's
guys
up?
heard from him there. Super thankful that you came onto the podcast again. Thank you for taking the time, Dwan, to be on to share so many great, valuable tips with us.
Thank you.
Tell us about what you're doing with some organ stuff.
Yes, I'm kind of going back to my roots as an organ player, and I think there's space for devotional organ music, almost like if you were in an old church and you came for prayer and a dude was playing organ and you're just like on the back row praying. I want that record. No, it's not flashy. It's not exciting in the sense of like doing all the things. It's just kind of setting the tone for prayer and Bible study. I'm hoping people can use it for their personal prayer time. Maybe churches can use it. If you don't have an organ player every Sunday or every Wednesday, maybe you can just put this on and set the atmosphere for a small church to pray and sing. And it'll probably be mostly hymns, maybe some original kind of pad prayer stuff. But it's just that dude on the organ in the back just kind of chilling and playing. And you're like, oh, yes, I want to make that record. So hopefully in the next little while, we'll have that out.
Oh, we can't wait. Well, if it's out by the time this releases, which probably won't be, but
yeah, we'll see. Maybe
your best
miracle.
bet is just to follow Dwan Hill on Instagram. Where else are you?
Yep. Instagram,
Spotify,
of course.
Apple Music.
Spotify. Yep, I got music up there. Choir Room, of course. YouTube. We're working on a lot of stuff. Like I said, I'm going back to my gospel music roots. So working on some resources for players, working on resources for worship leaders. I would love to connect with anybody out there that wants to hang.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you again for being on. If
Thank
you
you,
found this
Carson.
valuable, let us know in the comments here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Subscribe, of course. And all the month of April, we have organ-specific episodes. So,
Awesome.
Dwan,
Awesome.
you are one of just a few of the other guys who are just incredible organists. So thank you for taking the time again to come all the way over here. We're at Mount Zion Church, and you know Marcus
Zion.
Perry, right?
I do know Marcus Perry. This is his house.
Yeah,
his church.
this is his place. So we so thankful to Marcus.
He's the best. Yeah, and thank you, Mount Zion, for having us. Thank you, Carson, for having me. Thank you for spotlighting organ and players. Really grateful for what you're doing.